All right. Welcome, everyone, and good morning, good evening, good middle of the day, middle of the night, wherever you are. Welcome to the Algorithmic Pattern Salon. So, this is actually the first ever Algorithmic Pattern Salon where we bring together people passionate about finding new ways of pattern making, whether through contemporary or heritage practices. So, my name is Laura Devendorf. I'll be moderating the first session of the day. So we'll run this session for about an hour with some talks and then a Q&A after. I'll take a short break and then the next session will begin at 15:30 UTC. So if you like what you see in the morning, stick around for a later morning or afternoon or middle of the day or middle of the night, wherever you are. Okay, so again, my name's Laura Devendorf. I'm a faculty member in the US at the University of Colorado Boulder. For me, it's morning, so you might actually catch the sunrise behind me, which has been quite nice lately. My personal connection to this project and the algorithmic pattern theme has really been in the area of textiles and weaving, and really a fascination with weaving notations, maybe most notably through project I do, an open source project called AdaCAD, which is a kind of parametric design slash live-ish coding for weaving. Anyway, so that's what brings me here. And we have a bunch of talks this morning, which is kind of my favorite theme, which the theme is somewhat algorithmic pattern plus miscellaneous. So we really hit a bunch of different corners and a bunch of different aspects of algorithmic pattern, whether that's in digital arts or physical patterns or music production or juggling. And I actually think it's a really nice juxtaposition of a bunch of different practices and will seat us really nicely for a conversation at the end. On that note, we have a comments feature. So as presenters are talking, you are more than welcome to add comments to the stream or questions to the stream. And then after everyone presents, we'll do a Q&A at the end. So if we don't answer the question right away, just know that we'll be getting to it at the end. Well, again, thank you for joining us. And I'm really excited to welcome our first presenter, Ryan Ross Smith.
Okay. I hope everybody can hear me. I'm very excited to be talking about this today. I'm mostly focusing on some older works that have, in many ways, kind of moved beyond at this point into other realms. But the relationship to patterns was, I think, quite intriguing. And so, if I were to, how do I show my slides? Oh, there they are. Okay, so the topic here is what to do and when to do it, representation and realization of patterns with animated notation. So this is not, I know there's a lot of live coding people here. I would consider myself part of that community as well, but this isn't so much about that, but trying to create interesting patterns using this form of notation that instructs players what to do and when to do it. So in a sense, a kind of democratization of musical participation. So real quick, a couple foundations of animated notation is that it's prescriptive. So if we relate this to, let's say, graphic notation, which is maybe more suggestive, this is all very arguable, of course, but prescriptive meaning it's telling you exactly what you're supposed to do at a particular time. That it's necessarily dynamic, so it needs to be moving in order for it to work. And generally speaking, contact, intersection, and convergence would be sort of the typical ways in which these kinds of movements and then events would be provided to performers. So I'm not going to read this whole thing, but essentially is basically what I just said, right? So it's distilling notational information so that complex patterns can be developed and performed by human performers without too much in the way of training, rehearsal, et cetera, et cetera. So This is the first video of a piece called study number 40.3, Pulse 7. And the idea here is moving between sort of singular patterns from performer to performer to a kind of Hocket pattern. And you'll see a bunch of lines show up in the middle. The video is longer than it needs to be, so hopefully I can just kind of make a note or say put something in the chat to say let's stop here. But yeah, if we could see this video, please. Or do I do this in the chat? Oh, okay. Oh, in the meantime. Okay, great. So hopefully you could kind of hear how that just towards the end there, that Hocket pattern sort of came out of the more sort of individualized parts. I'm going to jump ahead to, I'm going to skip this. This is the basic structure of the next piece. It's 11 and a half minutes long, so we'll just have 3 clips. But before we play this clip, so the idea here is was to create a phase patterns for 15 performers using a kind of metronome notation. So what we'll hear in this first clip is, let's see, the first one is metals, is the performer starting in unison and then slowly speeding up, but at different rates to start to create this kind of phasing pattern. So yeah, so the first video, yeah, metals, we could do that now. This next one, all the performers have moved to pieces of wood, And at this point, they're maintaining 15 independent tempi. So what you'll see is that they will occasionally line up. All right, so we're good to go. Okay, then very quickly, this is the last section where they're all starting to slow down at different rates. Okay, so I'm out of time, but thank you very, very much. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. So thanks.
Darn it. I said some really beautiful things while I was muted, and that's really too bad. Sorry about that. But our next presentation, actually, the presenters can't be here today, unfortunately, so we're going to queue it up on video. So the presenters are Ofek Rafaeli and Tamuz Vardi, and they're going to be talking a bit about juggling.
Do the right thing, I break the law. If I smoke a little weed, I break the law. If I fall on the floor and take off my clothes, if I don't believe in anything, if I work on a track, I break the law. If I'm challenging facts, I break the law. If I'm thinking out loud, my spirit's too proud. If I'm doing way too many things, I woke up and it was over. I'm too late or maybe closer. That load right off my shoulder. All I got is this life to live. I woke up and it was over. I'm too late or maybe closer. So take that load right off my shoulder. All I got is this life to live. I don't know, so I don't believe in anything. Don't believe in anything. I don't know, so I don't believe in anything. Yeah. I don't know, so I don't believe in anything. No flags, no tags, I belong with everything. It shows I don't believe in anything. All I got is this life to live. I break the law. I break the law. If I look the wrong way, I break the law. If I got too much to say, I break the law. If I'm crossing the line or claiming what's mine, if I don't belong with anything, try to survive, I break the law. I won't do 9 to 5, I break the law. If I'm thinking out loud, my spirit's too proud. If I'm doing way too many things, I woke up and it was over.
All right. Well, thank you so much for queuing that up, Alex. And I will move us on to our next presentation, which is Arthur Kuhn, guided by a motif. So, Arthur, why don't you pop on in here and join us?
Hello.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for the slide. Yeah, so my name is Arthur Kuhn. I'm a French computational artist and a PhD student in Paris and Porto. And I'm going to very happily talk to you about the article I wrote for Alpaca, which is called Guided by a Motif, with an example of mereological sursumption. I'll try just to summarize it briefly. So in this article, I look back at how patterns have come to exist in different ways in my last and still ongoing artistic project, which is called Melodia Tomizachi, and explores the lore and corpus of a Polish artist from the 20th century, which was called Sena Pliński. Here you have a portrait of him in front of an installation from this project. However, the particularity in retelling his life and showing his work is that Sena Pliński is entirely fictitious. He's a character I've created to explore from hands-on perspective the contemporary wave of artificial intelligence technologies, specifically machine learning through statistical induction and retroactivation. And what it means production-wise is that I've created an ensemble of counterfactual archive documents, image, texts, even a sound piece around Sena Pliński, either directly under his pen name or presented as reconstitution of elements from his life. So you have here an installation, photograph of paintings from him, and a small book I've written in his name. And in this project, as in my previous ones, patterns and the notion of patterns and algorithm was used primarily as a structural element. It was a way to copy the structure of something to talk about something else. Like, for instance, this is a previous work where I wrote a fictitious book, a fictitious local history book, to reflect on how a real local historian would try to construct the legitimacy of his speech. And so I copied like phrase length and the structure of his text and his habit of writing, and I would use it as a way, as aesthetical framework for my own creations. So in this project, for example, I used numerology on the words Sena and Pliński, which led me to have some to guide me in some aesthetical decisions, like using the polynomial formula of a specific geometrical figure as a way to shape some sound, or determining the number of paintings of Sena's paintings I would present. But as a first for me, the question of visual patterns came also to fruition in what I've called the mereological paintings of Sena Pliński. So here they are. You have images of the painting on the left and the way they are presented on the right through the project. These paintings were generated by a custom trained machine learning model, which is called the denoising diffusion probabilistic model, which basically takes an input image and iteratively add noise to it while learning from the distribution of color values in the image. And in doing so, it's then able, given back a pure visual noise, to reconstruct the original image by denoising it. And what interested me in this process is that through minimum coding interventions, I could insert in the model behavior what I nicknamed the mereological sursumption. So to broadly explicit what it means, mereology is a branch of logic that is concerned with defining and formalizing the relationship between a whole and its parts. And it was primarily developed by a Polish logician from the early 20th century, which was a nice coincidence, called Stanisław Leśniewski. And he was trying to correct some paradoxes in the then burgeoning set theory of mathematics, but I won't go there into too much details. So because it is concerned with the formalization of inclusion and exclusion, subsumption, which is thinking about an object as part of a whole, and sursumption, which is to think of a part as a whole in itself, mereology fitted well with my inquiry of machine learning as not trying to build a defined model for objects, but rather focusing on the statistical relationship and proximities of asemic values, values without semantical meaning. So mereology was to provide sort of a language for thinking about how the only thing that mattered was the relationship between patches of undefined noise, and because this is an artistic project, flipping this relationship upside down. So practically, it meant that while I was training the model, at each iteration, noise adding step, I would reframe the image smaller and smaller. And then when given back a bigger format of visual noise, the model would start by choosing an image it has been trained on, but will not try to recreate it from top to bottom, like linearly from the whole to details, but rather focus on small batches of noise that it would have correspond to details from the image. So the model does not recreate the image by ordering every part to where it belongs, but by letting the part becoming the organizing principle from their proximity, visual proximity to noise, if you will, that creates the whole through the iteration of this pattern. And yeah, that's all. That's it. I'll just conclude. I just wanted to say that I got interested in this idea because for me, because this iteration is based on something that a human cannot possibly comprehend. It's a Gaussian distribution proximity to a diffusion in a noise. It's not something we can approach. I sort of interpret it as a first step in my practice of machine learning based creations toward a purely relational and sort of inhuman visual aesthetics. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Arthur. They're really beautiful and painterly, which is so interesting. I'm so used to seeing AI-generated art these days looking like dystopian steampunk. So it's a refreshing, it's a refreshing look. Well, thank you so much. Again, if folks in the audience have questions, please do write them in the comments and we'll revisit them at the end of the session. I'd like to welcome our actual last talk in the session, which is Vidya Giri, who's going to be talking about prairie patterns. Vidya.
Cool. Can you hear me? Okay. Oh, okay. So in my presentation, I wanted to chat a bit about a project I was working on with crafting fabric algorithms. So I've generated these patterns inspired by traditional techniques and also drawing from my surroundings that I grew up with, which is in the diminished Gulf Coast prairie of Houston. So in this way, I'm trying to combine a few elements of traditional techniques along with aspects of nature in my surroundings. So I guess to start off with, I wanted to give a brief disclaimer that obviously there's a lot of varieties of techniques and textile patterns across the Indian subcontinent and connected regions. And I'm just going to mention a few here that I've kind of inspired by, mainly the block printing ones, because I'm creating sort of less intricate patterns based on my own drawings and work. So I've sort of placed a few examples here where you can kind of see there was examples of bog print as well as kalamkari and other techniques from various regions. In Kerala, where my family is from, kasava is a style of weaving with cream fabric and gold threading, where there are also various patterns are visible. You can see like the repeating borders with the, all along the edges. Typically, It's used in saris and other forms of garments, and mundas, which is like a style of cloth that's draped for around your legs. And overall, the textile design and manufacturing in India and the world was initially greatly influenced by local environments and continues to eventually draw from regional and colonial influences with the worldwide textile trade. So I kind of wanted to show one example of Palanpur and chintz, where you can kind of see that the textiles are reflecting their influences, where the Palanpur styles of textiles, which were made in India, were eventually targeted to reflect European fauna and the targeted audience. And it became very popular in France and England, and eventually there was worries that it was diminishing the local textile industries there in their countries. So it's interesting to see that the textile industries and techniques were so interconnected that eventually textiles started, the textile mills there started to produce using techniques that were used in India as well. So they were both back and forth influencing each other, and based on the different, because florals are very common in all cultures. There's sort of this interconnectedness of the plants that are represented as well. And I feel like in all these forms of textiles, there's the human desire to put these things that we're observing and these elements of nature into ordered patterns that make sense to us through our visual senses. So I kind of wanted to also represent this aspect of in where my family is from. For every year, we put together these arrangements of flowers to celebrate like the harvest season. So kind of like a version of Thanksgiving. So with all that in mind, I was creating this project of crafting the fabric algorithms inspired by traditional textiles, but also inspired by the plants from my surroundings. So in my previous works, I had sort of represented the plant, like used a lot of plants and generated randomly generated fields. So you can see here with some textiles which have randomly generated fields. And then I also created like these little patches, which are also with like randomly generated sizes and plants placed in various locations. So this one was a 3D environment, and this one was like a 2D fields. And like based off of that, I thought I used all these assets that I had from those previous projects, which were also generated with code. And I decided to try to, put some order into it and generate a pattern inspired by all of these techniques that are seen. So yeah, in general, to generate the fabric patterns, I had decided to start with a simple pattern similar to block printing, where I'm focusing on repeated borders, repeated grids, and corner patterns. I decided to just keep the ratio square, so I just did 1:1, and I implemented it in P5.js to take in my drawings and put them into patterns. I did a basic schematic of the inputs. Basically, it has these different layers, these background layers and colors, and that for this one, it would be 3. And for each layer, it would have borders, which chooses an image, and then a corner image. And based off of that, it just puts in my drawings and repeats them. So you can see some examples of generated patterns here, where we have like a simple grid and then a border, an image put into the corner, and things like that. So that's sort of the gist of it. Yeah, at the moment, this project is pretty much pretty simple, but it renders these patterns that I think are interesting because it puts those like images in a new way that I hadn't anticipated before. Initially, I was kind of inspired what I was seeing like on a wild prairie, and now it's an interesting form of processing to put it into like a pattern. So in the future, I'd like to add additional motifs and plants and perhaps increase the complexity of this algorithm to be for various aspect ratios or various patterns, and like making the drawings maybe like connect better, and figuring out how I can create those patterns that connect together better and work for different aspect ratios. And I'm interested in working more on moving these into physical fabrics or even just digital renderings as well. So this is an example of just like I mocked it into like a 3D world. So I've kind of put the cloth on the back of this background. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to present today. And yep. Thank you.
Great. It's lovely. Thank you so much. And it's really, yeah, I feel like we've taken a journey this morning from different levels of like disembodiment and speculation to different forms of embodiment to then at the end of yours, I'm like, ooh, maybe it goes back into speculation.
Yeah, a little abstract, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to actually welcome all the speakers back. This is that was the end of our presentations, and now we have this moment to chat with each other and to chat with the audience. Maybe just for the sake of liveness, if you are in the audience, instead of clapping, perhaps you could just write a quick note in the chat to say like, yay, or I'm here, just to know that there's bodies somewhere. It can be really helpful in these kind of online presentations. So feel free to just drop a quick note in the chat to say hello or thank you. And then if you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat as well. I see we already have one question, but I actually thought maybe I'd get us started a little bit with oh gosh, it was like a warm-up question, but of course none of my questions are ever like, oh, that's an easy one. But I'm really kind of fascinated by the different relationships we form in these practices to computational machines. So if you think about like metaphorically about what the machine is in your practice, like is it a collaborator? Is it a piece of paper that you're writing on? If you could embody it in some kind of character, what role would it be playing in your practice? And anyone is actually welcome to start. Maybe I'll start with you, Ryan, because you went first.
Okay. I mean, I think for that work that I was showing, it's almost like a translator or interpreter. I guess interpreter is a pretty like sort of on the nose word to use. But since I'm working really kind of very, very explicitly with music notation in a form that's like in order to try and transmit these kinds of patterns to human performers, it's really important that there's a system that understands that idea and is able to represent it in a way that is palatable to let's say a human being, and based on, or also like taking into consideration that the works are designed to be easily performed, in a sense, easily understood. You sort of know exactly what it is that you're supposed to do, that the whole thing is democratized. And I would argue that I mean, going along with what you're saying, without a sort of computational machine, these things are very possible. but certainly in my research into this field and writing in this field is that it really wasn't until certain types of computational machines were easily accessible that the work started to emerge. So in a sense, it's kind of fundamentally based on the fact that there's access to these things. Again, this is a bigger topic, and it's arguable that the examples of this go back over 100 years. But anyhow, that's my 2 cents to your great question.
Well, thanks. So I think the interpreter is a nice way of framing that as well. Arthur, did you have thoughts?
Yeah. Well, it's very, like Ryan said, it's a very interesting and kind of large question, which needs for vast answers. But for me, I consider myself that in my work, the dialogue and back and forth between what I ask the machine to do and what it can provide me without much of control is essential. It's this relationship that interests me the most. And so it's like, for me, it's like working with someone that is both completely obsessive over little details and can produce infinite amounts of noise and information and stuff, and just ask it to perpetually produce a lot of things that could be seen as almost crushing for me, just because it's such a large amount of information and noise and numbers and images and sounds and everything. And then my role is to carve it a little bit, to filter it in some directions that will evolve through time or in accordance to certain aesthetic principles, or because that's where I wanted to go at that precise moment.
Yeah, but I think that idea of it's like you're in a dialogue with it also feels very different than maybe having it sort of a chain of instructions from one person to a group of performers. Yeah, or like the machine in some way is the performer.
But if I can just add,
yeah, please.
What you just said, Ryan, is it's funny for me because I am right now just in the middle of trying to write scores for my sound performance, basically, because I have a few now that I do sometimes, and it's very hard. It's very, very hard because these performances have been made with like Max MSP or sound creation software, and they were made because from the possibilities of the machine. So it's like there are no samples or traditional instruments, and now I have to create scores that is understandable both for me and other human beings to use machines that were made to use the fact that they are not humanly understandable. So it's very a mess and a tricky question, not to bring it into something that is understandable by other human beings.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think sometimes the most interesting questions are the ones that don't have easy answers. So sorry for all that. But it's interesting to hear people kind of think through it and talk through it. Vidya, did you have thoughts about it?
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear like what Ryan and Arthur had said. I think for me, I usually think it as a way of like observing and noticing from my surroundings and translating it into a new form. And I think the fun thing about like when I was like looking back at like different things that I've done is like sometimes, you know, you want to let the processing, like kind of what Arthur was talking about, is like letting the process, like, you know, just a process of discovery and seeing what happens, you know, and being and playing off of that. Whereas sometimes I'm just like trying to be highly controlled in my details. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's all interesting to chew on and think through. I wanted to move us to a second question from Alex in the chat. So I'll just read it directly from the question, and then maybe I'll also kind of bring up Ryan's response after too. So Alex's question is, Ryan's presentation makes me think about the importance of notation and pattern making. It's really upfront in Ryan's work, but clearly super important in site swap, and I think weaving and block printing too, probably. Is this fundamental to algorithmic pattern? What is algorithmic pattern without notation? Another softball question. Yeah. I'll let anyone just unmute and take this one as you like.
Anyone want to go? I'm trying to remember what I responded to it. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, like I feel like Vidya, you were getting to this, or you were saying this in your answer to the last question about how you're interpreting what you're seeing around you, and I feel like this comes up a bunch, and certainly in live coding, about the idea of it being a kind of notation communicating with whatever the software happens to be, whatever the language happens to be, and that we still, no matter what the system is, have to have some way to communicate with it. And so that might be more explicit in terms of developing an actual notational strategy, or maybe less explicit in terms of, I guess it's not really less explicit, but more internalized, if we're thinking about how something is being filtered through whatever our backgrounds happen to be, where we're from, and what our external environment is. It's still going through that kind of process of codification, potentially, so that it results in something that can be perceived elsewhere, I guess, again, by an animal or a machine, whatever the case may be. But yeah, just I won't drone on about it, but I think it's a really interesting question. And I think also the idea of being sort of overwhelmed with the amount of information, with these like the paintings, the prints we were looking at, that you were making, is be difficult to sort of like go through all of that, right? Like, I think you had said it was overwhelming just to deal with the amount of information, and and it's like, how do you create a system in which the information is being kind of told how to be manipulated? I don't know if that makes sense. I'm going to mute myself.
I would give us all permission to not make sense. Because I think it makes more sense than we think, but also I feel like making sense might be overrated. Yeah. Others on the same topic, can you have algorithmic pattern without notation?
I guess like building a pattern, it's sort of like you're putting things into like some sort of order that makes sense in your mind, but maybe sometimes things can make sense without you formally knowing what it means. So, we just like are drawn to like the symmetry, or drawn to like a rhythmic pattern. So I don't know. I think that, or even just like, the right amount of, we always don't want things, I feel like we don't always want things to be perfect in there. But there is something that's interesting about like an ordered pattern that I think we're drawn towards, like making sense of things, which I think both of them were alluding to as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like though that it accounts for this idea of the ineffable, right? Like there may be, I guess there's infinite patterns in the things, but I like how you point to this idea of the things we might not know, right? Or that we maybe feel as an intuition. Where I think it would be a shame to say that we can't have algorithms without notation. Yeah, it's a bit like if the tree falls in the forest. Arthur, did you have thoughts?
Yeah. I think it's very interesting because it's obviously very close notions, like, because for me an algorithm is an exercise in notation. Like writing an algorithm is basically writing instructions for how to do a calculus operation or series of operation. And pattern, on the other way, comes from the repetition of certain steps. So you can so you could say that they are like on both ends of the spectrum, but you can also create patterns without formally writing the steps you are following, and you can write instructions that write instructions with part of the instructions being be unpredictable or things like that. If you think about like the oblique strategies of Brian Eno, or some partitions by John Cage or things like that. And so for me, there is like these two notions are at the end of a spectrum, and you can try to navigate between this and navigate between a very formal notation of steps, very precise, definite, clear steps you have to follow, or you can try to inject some randomness and chaos in it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, of course, John Cage comes up in a few of these talks as an interesting character. And I think I was thinking about that maybe mostly in Ryan's talk first, but I was remembering a piece of Cage where it was like using the blemishes on the paper as notation, right? And then reading those. And I was wondering, Ryan, specifically, if you could reflect on like the intentionality, like in what ways do you feel like you're scripting these practices, and in what ways do you feel like you're bringing in other agencies or chance or randomness in the kind of compositions that you're making?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So the last, I just showed the two pieces. The last one is very, very prescriptive, super fixed. The form is totally malleable, which was by design. But the majority of the other works are generative in nature. So, I mean, even though a lot of them exist only as videos now, some of them are 10 years old. So it is what it is. But every time they would run, they would be different. And so that was a really important part of kind of embracing this approach to creating musical compositions with these sorts of embedded patterns. So the first piece had this Hocket pattern that would emerge at times, but the way that it would emerge would be different every time, and the score itself would run indefinitely. So it just would never stop. The idea being this: if it ran long enough, maybe someday it would, before the sun explodes, it would get through every possibility. Was a sort of big part of that. As far as agency goes from a performer perspective, though, my approach was to, I mean, it was some of the work was criticized, but which was great, early on, as being too much like an assembly line, which I found to be a really great criticism. But the reality of it was, if those patterns were going to actually be perceptible, the performers would have to sort of submit to the process. And so things like interpretation were intentionally removed from a lot of those works, so that those patterns would emerge. When interpretation was brought back in, those rhythmic patterns and sometimes melodic patterns would not emerge. They wouldn't speak in the same way. So it's a kind of an interesting control method for this kind of work. Yeah, I think I got to that question, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a piece by Cohen Van Balen called 75 Watt. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's they basically designed a product that would choreograph an assembly line in the way that you produce it. It kind of has that element to it. Like, yes, sometimes actually getting people to perform the role of the machine can yield interesting results as well. I want to maybe shift to Anurada's question in the chat, which is for Vidya. So she writes, lovely work. Did you consider recreating your digital patterns with block printing and comparing the results of that process, or would it make you reflect on the algorithmic differently?
Yeah, I guess that kind of ties in a little bit with the previous thing that you guys were talking about with, the computer giving like maybe the computer has the instructions and then I would follow them. I hadn't considered that yet, but that sounds like a really interesting form of reflecting on the algorithm, especially because I think it involves more of like the, physical nature of repeating and also decisions. So like I would have to have like the sizes set or like the positioning set and things like that. So that's a really cool idea, and I think it would make me reflect on maybe just like what it means to like repeat the pattern and make those decisions.
Yeah, also maybe because the block prints will also be unique in each, the block is fixed, but the way that it distributes the ink is often so beautiful. Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I feel like it would open it up to like not looking so ordered all the time, but also, it would depend on like how well I would execute it, I guess.
Yeah.
But it'd also be interesting that like if you were like to maybe like laser cut or these blocks, you could like make ones of different sizes and the computer would like tell you which size to use.
Totally.
You would kind of become the performer in a sense, like this sort of full circle coming back around.
Yeah, so the computer tells me what to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Tells us all. These
Yeah.
little dictators.
Yeah, that's what I do all day. So the computer gets a chance.
I maybe had a question for Arthur. I mean, I was really interested in your use of the counterfactual and your kind of ways of scripting different narratives based on like different mathematical relationships. I think, I don't know, it made me think also of different notations that are meant to be generative. So I'm thinking like horoscope and star charts and tarot or Rorschach tests. And I'm wondering to what degree that actually directly informs your work, or is it more of a side effect?
Not sure I understand your question, but
It didn't make sense.
no. It's my fault. It's my fault. Sorry.
No, not at all.
No. It's just if you're talking about how like I invite some mathematical expressions and things in my work, especially for this last project, I talk in the article. I talked a lot more about numerology and using like some sort of pseudosciences like that. I love this kind of stuff because, as I said, like my work for me is my main subject is like how do you go from informational noise to situated knowledge, and through some systems of construction, social, intellectual, epistemological construction, etc. And so at first I always need like a lot of numbers and a lot of noise and a lot of things that I love to just like I'm a Wikipedia based artist, basically, making link between stuff. And so I always start with, on one side, what I really want to talk about, and on the other side, what I'm going to use to talk about that or to emulate the system of construction. And things like mathematical expressions, geometrical figures, and things like that. I don't come from a mathematical background, so I go towards it to understand it better and work with it on a more deeper level. But it's mostly a way to generate information, generate number, generate structures that I'm going to, like I said, it's a dialogue back and forth between the rigidity of some structure and my artistic liberty to interpret it and bend it in ways that concur towards what I want to talk about and how I want to theatrically have it played in front of me. Theatrically, like in the theatricality of system aesthetics, not on stage with public, of course.
Yeah, but I like that you make it, and all of you in different ways take these ideas and make them material, right? Like you're not publishing the algorithm, you're showing it as paintings and writings and sound. And I think maybe that's where the richness of the algorithmic pattern, like the pattern is just the little cog working behind the scenes, and then it like leads to these different material manifestations. So kind of working from the immaterial makes me think of a prism, right? Like it's a prism notation because it takes the light and then it spits it out in a specific way. But yeah, these different processing steps are really fascinating. And I really appreciated being able to talk with all of you about this and hear about your work. We just have about 2 minutes left. If any of you had a final thought you wanted to add, yeah, let me know. If not, we will maybe wrap things up.
Yeah, thank you. It was really nice, and I really like the way you described that at the end there.
Thanks.
I thought it was good.
Yeah, this was great, and I look forward to learning more about your work, Vidya, and your work, Arthur, and Laura. And thanks to Alex and Laura and everyone who is putting this pretty crazy thing together. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
Thank you. Thanks mostly to Alex, who's the leader of the crazy thing. Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you all for joining us. Please, you're welcome to stay online. We have our next session in just about 30 minutes. In between the sessions, there will be some testing of the video and audio channels. So if you hear voices coming from your machine, it's not a divine intervention. It's just Alex testing things. But yeah, you're welcome also to just walk away for a bit, grab a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, come back in just about 30 minutes for some more great chats. And thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Yes, so let's do some last minute technical checks. Stu, I'll bring you to the stage.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I can hear you very well as well. That's good. So yeah, was it a video that you're going to show? Is that right?
A PowerPoint.
A PowerPoint, okay. So the easiest way of doing that is to upload it. So you can go to present, then slides, and then add file from your computer. Unless it's got videos embedded in it.
Nope, it's just slides. They're all static.
Okay, yeah. Great.
So I go to present.
Present, then slides, then add file from your computer.
Upload the file. Okay. No. No items match my search.
And Thomas,
I'm not seeing the list of the files in that folder.
Well, that's strange.
There's a PPT in there. I'm in the correct folder.
So you've gone slides, add file from your computer. And it's a PowerPoint, you say?
Yes, let me see. I've got it on my screen. Well, let me put the file name in.
Tomas and Alejandro, are you there as well?
It's not found.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yep.
Yes, fine, yeah.
Good.
Just so you're going to demo the RagaLab, and
Okay.
I didn't hear sound from it yet, so
Yeah.
it'd be good to test.
Okay. It's looking for some file or type of file that is not in the folder.
Oh, that's strange.
It's a PPTX.
Huh. You could try maybe exporting it as a PDF from PowerPoint. I think that could help. But yeah, it does support PowerPoint files, so I'm unsure what the problem is with that.
Export it as a PBT.
So yeah, Alejandro and Tomas, how are you getting sound from Pure Data into the web browser? Have you got
Okay,
that?
can we try now this?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay. So try the PD patch, please.
Okay.
Yes, I see it.
Ahí está.
So you should see our patch, and we're going to start. That's the sound. Can you hear it's a sort of dulcimer sound?
Yeah, I can hear it quite clearly. It might be coming through your microphone, but
Okay.
¿Digo?
Presente por el micrófono, ¿no?
A ver,
Let's see if we can change that in the audio settings.
no me da eso.
That's not possible.
Pero podría ser. Espérate.
Yeah, I think you'd need something like black hole or.
Okay. ¿No tienes black hole?
Black hole, no, pero podemos tratar de bajarlo. ¿Una tarjeta?
Es un puerto virtual.
No.
Well,
no.
I can hear it clearly. Clearly as a dulcimer, so I think it's fine as is.
Yeah, if it's running through the next, maybe.
Probemos el video. We try the video.
It's a video.
There's configuration.
Just skip that. You just go for the sound part.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That sounds better than the dulcimer. Or sounds
fine.
Okay.
There is the possibility to add the video directly to the stream, though, which would be clearer, I think.
Okay, so let's try that quickly. So stop sharing.
Go to present and then video file.
So we want to try it sharing that window specifically.
So if you go to present, then video file.
Ventana. ¿El Raga este?
Mi película, película.
Ah, película.
Are you guys working on mine or something else?
Oh, no, we're working on another presentation. Did you manage to export a PDF, Stu?
How sounds that?
That sounds good.
Okay. That is the sharing of the video directly.
Okay.
Probably that's better than. Okay.
Oh yeah, I can see your presentation now. So it's just loading.
Oops. Wrong thing. That's the wrong thing.
Sorry, did you say it was wrong?
That's a different folder altogether.
All right, okay. So are you happy then, Alejandro and Tomas?
Hang on. Hang on.
I think we are fine. If you
Good.
can listen previously clearly, it's okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Good, thank you.
That's not working.
Oh, what's the problem, Stu?
No, that says it's uploading.
Oh, that's good.
Are you getting it?
Hasn't appeared yet, but I have faith. So is that a PDF? There we go. So let's try stage.
There you go.
Lovely. So you should be able to interact with that to go backwards and forwards between slides.
Yeah, okay.
Great. So that video you uploaded, is that not needed then?
No, that's for a completely different program.
All right, okay.
I'm in the mode for that program, which I was working on last night. And I obviously didn't get enough sleep.
Oh dear. Is it early for you at the moment then?
It's not that early, but well, relative to my normal schedule, it actually is early.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I think Winston Churchill stayed in his bed until lunchtime, but
Oh,
writing.
well, I think he was probably drinking quite a lot as well, though.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now what happens? The other presentations are on, and when it's my turn, this thing pops up.
Yeah. So
you'll put it up.
Yeah, I'll put it up for you.
Okay,
so
and is the audience seeing just my screen, or are they seeing other stuff? I have a whole bunch of stuff surrounding it on my screen.
Yeah, they can only see the slides.
Okay.
There's no screen sharing. Just
Okay.
the slides.
Yep.
We can have your face next to it talking as well if you like, or if you'd just like it to be full screen, that's also possible.
Yeah, I'm real old. Maybe people, I see in the previous presentations there are all these very attractive young people.
Right. Yeah, I'm not very attractive at all because I've got coronavirus at the moment, which is why I'm not showing my video at all.
Well, surely that doesn't affect your appearance.
Well, I haven't shaved for quite a while, and I've got a bit. Yeah, I think
okay.
It does
Well,
actually
we
affect my
accept each
appearance.
other. Come as you are.
Okay.
So just hang tight here until the show starts.
Yeah, okay. I can take you off screen, and and then Lizzie will introduce you at the right time. So yeah, nice to meet you, and I'll look forward to your presentation.
Oh, thanks. I'm looking forward to seeing the others too.
Yeah, great. All right, take care.
Yep, thank you.
Javier.
Hey.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'll add
Nice.
you as well, Lizzie, if you like. Sorry, I probably should have asked you first. Yeah, so I guess you'd like to test some slides or something?
Yes, but I have a situation here in my home. Actually, I woke up without electricity and now it came back. So I'm worried about what could happen, but I just recorded my presentation. I tried to make it as short as possible. I got somewhat nervous, but I got around 9 minutes and a half.
Okay.
And I don't have time to have another take. So I will, I can share you a Google Drive link with the video in case.
Sure. Yeah, you could drop that in the private chat.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's better if you play my presentation and then I answer questions and enter the discussion.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Lizzie, as chair?
Yes, that sounds fine. Yes. So good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, whatever makes sense, yeah.
So yeah, there's two chats. There's the comments bit, which is what everyone sees. We do have a few people watching us at the moment as well in between sessions. And there's also the private chat, which is just for the participants who are presenting and myself as technical person and Lizzie as chair. So yeah, you can just drop the link in the
private chat.
Private chat, yeah.
Okay. Tell me if it works. It is not that heavy. Should be fast to download.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see. I might need to quickly convert it. Let's see if it works. Where did it put it? So we're going to play this video anyway. Then this is not just in case your electricity goes out. This is what we're going to do then. Yeah. So.
Yeah, let's go this way because also I live in quite a difficult to reach place and internet is not good. So
okay,
it's throwing dice.
Yeah. It seems okay in Sheffield today, so hopefully. Yeah, I'm just having to convert it to an MP4, but it should be done soon.
I expected MKB to be more standard. It took also Google Drive quite a while to convert some of the videos I uploaded for my presentation.
Let's see.
How are you, Lizzie?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fine as well.
Yeah, congrats on making it this far without electricity today. So.
I was like, I was shocked.
Yeah,
when light went off, I was like, okay, I have to make a recording. And I didn't knew if the light was going to come back. I was thinking if I should go downtown and look for us some place with internet. I don't know what I would have done.
Where are you based?
I'm in Tepoztlan. This is south of Mexico City.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little, or maybe not so little town. Where are you?
I'm in London, in the UK.
Hmm.
So, what time is it for you then? It must be morning, right?
Yeah, it's about almost 9:30.
Okay, that's not too bad. Not too early.
No, actually, the schedule of the salon was good for me. I like the mornings for this kind of for connecting on Zoom and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were lucky to find that everyone who presented could present within these times, actually.
Yeah, that was good. Also, I didn't know if I would be able to be present because I just had a son about a week ago.
Well done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm still celebrating. But look, for me, my dad came by and he's helping us with stuff at home.
So exciting.
Yeah. Fun times ahead.
Yeah.
How's the sleep patterns getting on?
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
New patterns are emerging, definitely. Also, states of consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a special time.
Yeah, I'm embracing it. I've seen my nephews grow fast. So I know with the times go so fast that I will miss it later on. So I try to enjoy it now.
Good. Right, this is still converting. It says it's doing it double speed, so I suppose if it's 9.5 minutes, should be finished fairly soon. Oh yeah, it says it's up to 7.5 minutes so far, I think. Yeah, 2 more minutes to process. And then we can test it.
Has everyone else had a chance to test slides and things now?
Good question. So let's have a look at the schedule to remind myself.
I see we have Stuart here as well.
Yes, Stuart is here. He's tested. Deanna is here. Maybe we should bring them all back to say hello to each other. Let's see. And make sure everyone's aware of what's going on. Hi, Deanna. Am I pronouncing your name right, by the way?
Yeah, Deanna. That's perfect.
Deanna, okay.
Yeah, I was going to do a quick check around pronouncing names anyways. Is it Deanna Gelosi? Is that how you'd say it?
Deanna Gelosi.
Gelosi, okay. And then Xavier Gongora, is that correct?
Javier Gongora. That's all right.
Okay. And then Tomas thayer, or thayer, how would you say? I don't know if Tomas is here.
Yeah, they might have.
Oh, I think you're muted. I don't have audio.
Oh,
Oh, can you hear us?
yeah.
How would I say the name? Is that correct?
My name is Tomas Thayer or Tomas Thayer.
Okay. And then Stuart Smith.
Alejandro here, he's with me, my editor and my translate my bad English.
I'm just gonna test this video. All right, that's the right one, I hope.
Greetings, everyone. First, I would like to thank the Algorithmic Pattern Salon organizing committee for the opportunity of speaking.
Okay, that sounds good. I don't want to spoil anything, but just check towards the end. Yeah. Okay. I think that's good enough test for me. Now I need to work out who's the real Xavier.
It's kind of awkward to see two Javiers in my screen.
Which one do I remove? I think the moving one is the right one. Actually, I can't see the other one. Confused.
That one.
Do I remove the video?
For the greetings, everyone.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Thanks,
okay. So I believe what's happening is that Lizzie will introduce you in turn, and then we'll take questions, or Lizzie will take questions collectively at the end. If you have, there's the private chat for saying things just to Lizzie or myself or each other, and the comments which the audience, esteemed audience, will also be able to respond as well. I think that's more or less it. So maybe, unless there's any questions, we should now have a rest for 5 minutes and then come back in fresh.
All good.
Okay, I'll take us all from the stage then.
Okay, hi. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to the second part of today's session on our Algorithmic Pattern Salon. So it's great to have you back again, and I hope, again, you've been enjoying all the amazing talks as much as I have. Been learning a lot over the past few days. So to introduce myself to anyone who doesn't know me yet, my name is Lizzie Wilson, and I am a lecturer at the Creative Computing Institute at University of the Arts London. I'm also a live coder and kind of very interested in this idea of algorithmically representing musical pattern, specifically with tidal cycles, and just generally find this topic very interesting around ways that we can notate and understand pattern on a broad level that we've been seeing over this conference so far. So thanks everyone for joining. And in our session today, we're going to see some papers from Deanna Gelosi, Tomas thayer, Stuart Smith, and Xavier Gongora. So first up, we have Deanna. So Deanna, maybe you would like to introduce yourself and your background, and then take it away for your presentation.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Lizzie. Hi, everyone. My name is Deanna Gelosi. I am calling from Boulder, Colorado, and I'm joined by my colleagues Laura Devendorf and Etta Sandri. And today I will be presenting a talk called Glitch Weaving. So Glitch Weaving is a project that I did. It's an open source software tool that infuses deterministic algorithmic glitches into woven textiles. Its aim was to be able to have an interplay between human and machine interaction and just disrupt that traditional textile practice where you're performing exactly what a pattern is expected to be, but also to embrace a new perspective into creative errors. So I made this project as a novice weaver who was always making mistakes in my woven textiles. And so I thought it would be interesting to make a tool that embraced these changes and added intentional alterations to the weaving instructions. Now I know that glitch can mean a lot of different things, especially in computing circles. Sometimes they're generally unwelcome errors, something that has like a negative view on it. For me in this project, it was a very positive word that I used, and it was a celebration into the unforeseen. So here was an initial pairing of two samples that I made. One on the left is the original pattern, unaltered, and then on the right, I started to explore what would it look like to start adding these intentional errors and highlighting them, in this case, using a different color yarn in teal. So there are many artists that explore the intersection between textiles and glitch. Just to name a few really exemplary pieces, artists have used glitch in embroidery projects. We see here Paula Torres Nunez del Prado has her series on corrupted structures, which embrace embroidery flaws in a very dramatic and dynamic way. We also have another embroidery project, Browsers by Nukemi. Here, the corporate logos are altered in really interesting ways and yet still very recognizable. In terms of weaving, there's so many examples. David McCallum in his thesis explored both weaving and knitting algorithmic errors. This one called wrong petal error in the bottom left is a really interesting example where the error is amplified over many different samples. We also have some gorgeous work by Fayed Ahmed, who works in making rugs that start out in a very traditional pattern and then deform and decay over the course of a cloth. So some really wonderful dynamic pieces. And then also this work has entered into the design field as well. Glitch Textiles is a company that makes glitchy throws and pillows so you can have this type of work in your home. So one thing to note is that there's many different ways to weave. A lot of artists work on jacquard looms in which you can individually operate each warp thread of your yarn. But this type of tool is not necessarily everyone's experience with weaving. A lot of people in their homes will use table or floor looms that are limited by the number of shafts that you have on a loom. And in the case of my project, I really wanted to design for this type of loom that, because you're not able to control every single work thread, you don't have every possible pattern available to you because of how the work threads are tied to the shafts. But it also presents some unique opportunities. So my goal was, how do I make glitchy woven textiles that were still valid to be able to weave on a 4 or 8 shaft loom? So the project itself would start with making the original draft that would then be glitched. So on the left here, what you'll see is a woven, or a particular woven pattern. It's called a monk's belt. And on the right is the JSON that I used to be able to construct that particular pattern. And then when wanting to glitch the pattern itself, the way that I would do that is actually altering the lift plan of the piece, of the textile itself. So in weave drafting, there's generally a lift plan, and so by changing, either by adding another shaft, removing a shaft, or switching the shaft that was called on a particular row, it invited an error. So here you'll see, anytime that you see a pink row is a time that an alteration was made. And so as I was weaving on a table loom, I would then be able to see what errors were made and just highlight that for myself if I wanted to call that out in some way. And as of last night, I finally was able to port this project, which was originally a processing project, and bring it into P5, just to make it a little bit more accessible and be able to archive it in some way, but also it invites the opportunity that if you wanted to check this project out, mess around with it, maybe find some intentional and unintentional bugs in that process of transforming it, I welcome for you to check it out. So just to highlight a couple of outcomes, because I was both interested in developing the software, but I'm also equally interested in what are the physical outcomes of working with code and materials, and what does it look like to make these glitchy weaving samples. So here on the left, you'll notice 3 different samples. They are exploring different ways of visualizing the error rows. So on the top is the unaltered draft. In the middle, I just was playing around with color, as we saw in the beginning slides. And in the bottom, I was exploring texture. So what if as you move down the sample, the rows that are error filled start having more loops, and they become looser and almost start to feel like it's disintegrating down the cloth. But then as I was wrapping up this project, I had all of these samples of projects that had either been successful or somewhere in between, and I wanted to figure out something meaningful to do with this. So I had some jeans that had holes in the knees. I had a jean jacket that could use a little flare. So I took the opportunity to bring some of these glitchy samples and upcycle some clothing I had. And I was thinking about this as I was doing it, as mending error with error. So that's all from me. There's a little bit more documentation on my personal website. I invite you to check out the P5 project. And yeah, thank you all so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Deanna. That was, a really beautiful presentation, and looking forward to hearing some of the questions on this. So we'll follow through with the next talk, and we'll have questions at the end. But as you if you think of any questions at any point, then feel free to add them to the chat as we go along. Okay, so next up we have Tomas. Tomas is also joined by Alejandro Albornoz as well. So
Hi.
would you like to introduce yourselves and then start your talk?
Okay, hello.
Okay, hello. My name is Tomas Thayer, and Alejandro Albornoz here helped me with the English, and he's my editor of RagaLab.
Okay, we are lecturers here at the University Austral de Chile in southern Chile in Valdivia. We're going to start with the presentation. So this is it. This is RagaLab, an experimental prototype for mathematical exploration and musical modeling of structures based on Indian classical music theory. Let's go to the next one. RagaLab is an educational resource consisting of a musical application for the algorithmic generation of ragas of the Indian Carnatic system. Currently is under development. It allows to experience music and mathematics by its use. The RagaLab's aims are to contribute to the educational system by diversifying the ways of teaching mathematics and at the same time establishing interdisciplinary connections with musical composition practice. This is all of this is inspired by the structural and formalization parts of the stochastic composition Acoripsis by Yanis Xenakis. In this 1975 piece, Xenakis focused on generating material based on purely mathematical formulations before starting to work with purely musical elements. So that is an idea that inspired the project. At the same time, RagaLab is a project that emerges from the PicaLab project, which was a suite consisting of 4 MMSI modules. These are little applications for focused on primary education here in Chile, and one module was music mathematics, sounds interactivity. Another one is audio fractions, another one audio integers, and the final one is audio graphics and multiples. Let's move to the next one. With that idea of something educational to deal with is inspired in the previous project, RagaLab emerges. So RagaLab, it is in an experimental stage and has been implemented as a prototype in pure data. It combines Southern Indian musical tradition, melakartas, which are the musical Indian modes, and mathematical concepts such as combinations, permutations, and probabilities. The pedagogical approach seeks to enrich musical and mathematical education, promoting sound creativity and various forms of mathematical thinking. It's important to state that the focus of this project is on secondary education and the first years of university education system here in Chile. Let's move to the next one. Here you can see the general structure of the application, which consists on 4 modules, whose human-computer interface is under development at the moment. The diagram shows each of these modules and the function that they have within the application. So in the far left, we got the RagaLab engine, which is modeling engine for algorithmic composition. And this is how we can say the background, the core of the program. And then on top of that, we got the micro composition module and the macro composition module. And those emit outputs that are directed to the digital synthesis module, where we can sequence and create music, and allows as well to send MIDI to hardware or external devices. This is the RagaLab engine and the initial user's interface. In this interface, it's possible to select the musical mode from a set of 72 melakartas of the Southern Indian musical system. In this same interface, it's possible as well to select a root sound for the drone, which is the usual base for music, Indian music. And it's possible too to select rising and falling notes, which are usually called avaroha, aroha and avaroha in the Indian system. At the same time, it's possible to select if the scale it will be pentaphonic, hexaphonic, or hectaphonic according to the selected mode. In the same interface, it's possible as well to select and define the main notes of both tetrachords that are produced, which are called body and somebody. And it's possible to select 2 unique notes from the total tessitura of the melakarta or new raga to give more variety to the output. And finally, in this same interface, we can start the micro and macro composition processes by opening the motif creation window, where it's possible to work with combinatorial processes, permutations, and temporality processes. Then we can have a quick look to the micro composition system and score interface. All of this will be shown in a little demonstration very soon. And the next one is the macro composition interface, which the main parts are 2 sequencers. On top is the sequencer 1 on cyan color and the sequencer 2 in green color. All of that is already done, but we have more stages under development now. So all of this is work in progress. We are designing the audio generation system, which will be connected to or suitable to be configured according to the different tuning charts. It could be tuned using the shrutis, which are the microtonal steps in the Indian system, or it could be using the equal temperament system, Western system. As you can see, we are considering different sound sources, including MIDI output, but it will be very good to have a inner embedded sound synthesis module. Well, you can see there the part of the programming for tuning the system according to the shrutis, the microtonal steps in the Indian system. And it's possible to get parametric control of glissandi between notes, which are called in Indian culture as mint. The meaning is snake, the translation. And it's possible to control the vibrato and the rhythmic cycle system of the Carnatic.
Esto es lo que vamos a esto es lo que está por desarrollarse.
All of these 3 last slides are under development right now. And that's it. But we're going to share with you a little demonstration. I think we got still a couple of minutes, and that's it. It's a little video. So we're going to play the video and skip on top of it, but to resume.
The first part is the configuration and very in fast video.
Yes, it's so quickly it shows how the system is configured. Then you load different lists of elements and so patterns, and then this is the sound.
The raga is Bhupali raga.
So that is a part of the underlying programming. But basically the patterns are these lists of numbers.
And the mathematics engineering here is permutations.
So the maths which are generating all the sounds are permutations.
Aquí estamos escuchando MIDI y audio.
The sound is a combination of digital synthesizer embedded in pure data, and at the same time hardware synthesizer controlled by MIDI. And that's it. So there are a lot of possibilities. Probably we're going to discuss a little bit more later in the question round. But I have to say that all the Indian music stuff will be explained better by Tomas, who is the expert here. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation. That was really amazing. Next up on our schedule, we have Stuart Smith. He'll be presenting an app for algorithmic pattern generation. So I will add Stu. Oh, there you are. So
Well,
yeah, if you'd like to introduce yourself and talk about your project.
Yeah, I'm Stu Smith. I'm Professor Emeritus in the Departments of Music and Computer Science at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. And I'm coming to you from Chelmsford, Massachusetts. I'm going to talk about my app for algorithmic pattern generation. And I'll start off with just a few examples. And these were made entirely with the app. That's something that's important. I'll have to explain that a little bit later. The pattern generation process always begins by the app generating a source image. Usually it's a very simple image, like, for example, parallel colored lines or some colored squares. But I can also select a source image from many other types of images. And in general, any standard type of file could be a source image. Once I have a source image, the app applies a sequence of filters, which I call the program. It's just a sequence of integers that stand for particular operations that the app can perform. Now, if desired, when my app itself is done, I can manipulate image geometry with an external app, and I'll explain why for that in a moment. And also, as a kind of final step, I can enhance an image, again, with something external. I use GIMP a lot. Okay, so I'll talk about the optional steps. Manipulating image geometry. I need another program right now. I'll probably solve this problem later, to get patterns with 3-fold and 6-fold symmetry, which are my favorites anyway. So those of you who know about plane symmetry, wallpaper, fabric design, there are 17 possible plane symmetries. My app can create 12 of them. Those are listed here if you know the lingo used to designate patterns. And for my beloved 3- and 6-fold symmetries, I use a program which may be known to some of you called Symmetry Mill, which is produced by Artlandia. This is an example I cannot make directly with my app. I make the colorful source image, and then I need Symmetry Mill to create this pattern, which has P6M symmetry, which means that there are 12 lines of symmetry, 12 lines of reflection around the image. Okay, here's an example of step 3. This is a source image, which my app creates. And I wanted something more symmetrical, so I turned to Symmetry Mill and got this pattern as a result. And with Symmetry Mill, you can mouse around on the source image, and the pattern, for example, on the right, will constantly change, and you just stop when you get what you like. The way Symmetry Mill works, the pattern is based on the smallest repeated unit. And in P6M, the repeated unit is this 30, 60, 90 triangle. Let me see. Yep, the laser pointer doesn't work. Okay, so the content of that triangle is what the pattern is made of. And with P6M, there are 12 of these just radiated around the center point. And then you get a pattern like over here on the right. And if you can follow my cursor here, you can see this element. Oop, I'm going to go back. Repeated here. And this kind of knobby blue thing you can see is here. And so on. Now I'll give you just 3 examples of patterns that my app initially created, and I applied Symmetry Mill to get the final pattern. Okay, as I mentioned, I have an optional step 4 using external filters. And these, if I feel the final image needs a little bit more zing visually, I'll try using a GIMP, typically GIMP, occasionally Krita. Those are my favorites in GIMP. Particularly the cumic ones are great. So here's how, this is a source image. Here's how it might work. Here's my source image. It's not colorful enough for me, not enough contrast. So I apply the local contrast enhancement, and I get this image here on the right. And if I'm still not happy, I can apply a second filter. In this case, it's the dream smoothing filter. And to me, this is a little too slick for my taste. I like a certain funkiness in my images, but I could do that. Okay, so choosing the source image is the key thing that you need to do. You want a variety of shapes and colors. And so you might be faced with a choice like this. On the left, you have a source image that has a fair number of different colors, different shapes. And on the right here, you have an image with very simple geometry, large areas of uniform color. And I wouldn't say I totally couldn't do anything with this, but in general, I prefer to work with an image on the type on the left. So I guess you could say the main thing my app does is to generate the source images. And so here are some example source images. Again, these would be the raw material for a final patterned image. Okay, I probably should quit while I'm ahead here and avoid the question of implementation, but I'll just tell you a little bit about it. The program is written in MATLAB. It could have been written in many other languages, but I chose MATLAB specifically because the MAT in MATLAB stands for matrix, which is a 2D array of data. And of course, an image can be represented as a 2D array of data. So I have all of the built-in functionality for processing matrices already programmed for me. Similarly, MATLAB has many built-in 2D and 3D display functions, so I don't have to write those. It also has built-in so-called toolboxes for image processing and signal processing, and some others, which again don't have to be, you don't have to program. And finally, for me, the cruncher on this is the integrated app designer. Here's my app interface. I didn't have to write a single line of code to create this. I just dropped widgets in where I wanted them, and a form for each widget would come up, and I could fill in text labels, for example, or text content, or numeric values, together with the allowed ranges of those values and so on. This interface is about 3,000 lines of code, not one line of which I had to write. All I had to write mainly was the functions that represent the program that you can create with my app. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation. That was really insightful. So last up on the schedule, we have Xavier Gongora talking about rhythm, time, and geometry. Xavier has a video presentation to share with us, but we'll be around for the questions as well. So can we have Javier's video?
The Algorithmic Pattern Salon organizing committee for the opportunity of speaking here today. My name is Xavier Gongora, and I'll be presenting Rhythm, Time, and Geometry, or RTG for short, a Haskell library in early development and part of my doctoral research project in music technology at UNAM in Mexico City. As such, this library is a proof of concept regarding the implication of computational abstraction in relation to musical expressiveness. As a standalone musical tool, it is the implementation of a geometric approach to the generation and manipulation of rhythmic patterns for music creation. My paper was written in a top-down fashion. It is a snapshot of the library as it was at the time of writing. This way of writing was a challenge I imposed myself in an attempt to be clear about what RTG is. In this talk, I will take a bottom-up approach. I will cover some of the inspirational elements that account for how RTG came to be in a hope to better convey its goals. Finally, I would like to address some of the comments I got in the review process. In the following video, we can see how the sum of patterns works in a simple case in tidal cycles.
3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Excuse me for the low volume. I didn't expect the audio to be compressed in this way.
7, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6.
The way patterns are combined in tidal cycles made me wonder about what other behaviors can be attained using other kinds of operations. On the other hand, Euclidean rhythms are simple yet powerful tools for the generation of engaging rhythmic patterns. They are called declaratively, in the sense that the precise event patterns are not written explicitly, but rather just called. Now, in chronomorph, the mathematical properties of balance and well-formedness are used for the generation of rhythms, visually represented as polygons on a circle. By itself, chronomorph is a rich interface for the creation of algorithmic patterns in music.
Well, another shape. Ah, something's beginning to happen. I'm going to rotate this one.
In perfectly balanced rhythms, each sample is assigned a different polygon, and the patterns are superimposed. So in that way, we can, for example, rotate one pattern in relation to the other to create new interesting patterns. Now let's see the example for well-formed rhythms.
So here I'll move between 7 and 12.
Watch this pattern morphing. I am currently working on the implementation of algorithms capable of generating these rhythmic pattern types for RTG, including the ability to continuously morph well-formed rhythms using a ratio parameter, as we saw in the example, or using interpolation for general types. Central to RTG's API is the definition of operators to combine them in a fashion similar to that of Tidal's pattern arithmetic. All this in a programming language-centric approach, where text is the intended user interface. This is because I want RTG to be suitable for live coding. Of particular importance is the exploration of cases where such operator makes a rhythmic pattern type into a group in the algebraic sense. The reason for this resides in their Langen program, which is a mathematical research program proposed by Felix Klein in the late 1800s. Its key insight can be phrased as follows: geometric structure can be studied through the transformation that preserve it. In this way, geometric objects and spaces are studied through the lenses of group theory. Here we can see 6 transformations that preserve an equilateral triangle, so its position and size is fixed. What is formally defined as the group structure is intuitively the ability of composing 2 transformations to obtain another valid transformation, and also being able to revert the effect of a transformation as if nothing had happened. In computational terms, a group operation is a function that takes 2 values of the same type and produces a value of one such type. Sum and multiplication of numbers are the paradigmatic group operations. In the following video, we also see the effect of an Euclidean rhythm sum, the way it is currently defined in RTG. In computational terms, just for the record, these are the implementation details of the current Euclidean rhythm sum. Now we will show the design principle of RTG specification. First, Euclidean rhythmic patterns are generated in a declarative way from a collection of algorithms with geometric interpretation. Euclidean rhythms are the paradigm here. These patterns are organized into families represented by algebraic data types with binary operators defined to make them groups. This is to explore pattern combination in a way related to underlying geometric structures. This comes out of curiosity. What can geometric structures sound like at the level of rhythmic transformations? Library modules are divided into 3 classes: rhythm, time, and geometry. This is an organizing principle, where the rhythmic component corresponds to the implementation of algorithms for pattern generation. Geometric modules is where group instances are defined. And finally, the temporal modules define the timing and streaming of outgoing messages to an audio server, which is currently titled SuperDirt. At the present time, RTG is in a very early stage of development. I intend to have a rich collection of patterns and algorithms. which I keep finding in my research. The main quirk of the system is that it is non-concurrent. I can only call one instance of a pattern at a time, making its musical usability quite limited. Also, the samples are hard-coded. I also have implemented functions to measure balance and evenness of different patterns in the hope of reaching an implementation to generate these kind of rhythms. Furthermore, the Euclidean rhythm sum has no instance to be played directly, but I have an Euclidean pattern function implemented so we can hear an Euclidean rhythm. My recent work is aimed to fix these issues towards a somewhat simple but usable musical tool. For the purpose of this presentation, I changed some of the comments I received from the review into questions. First, what are the implications on or understanding of the rhythmic grouping? Why are other important dimensions of music and rhythm not addressed? And finally, how is this geometry visualized? Well, I will think the first question the other way around. I want to put to use the existing understanding of rhythmic grouping. Thanks for the reference I received. The temporal dimension will be thoroughly explored. As it is, the rhythmic dimension richer in research. Other dimensions will follow. And my focus is not on visualization. When we call an Euclidean rhythm, no visual representation is missed, but it is always welcome. Thanks for bearing with me this far. Here's my contact information, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for that presentation. Yeah, and maybe now we will bring back all of our speakers to the stage, and we will open up for questions. So if anyone else has any questions that they've not yet asked, then please feel free to add these in our live chat right now. So I would start off with a question to all of the speakers, because, and I'm going to steal one from Laura earlier because it was a really great question. I was wondering, obviously, all of your talks were, quite varied with the kind of mediums that you're using, but you all have some kind of relationship to the machine within there. So I was wondering where you situate that relationship to the machine in your practice. Do you see it as a collaborator? Is it a tool for notation? What is your relationship to that within the pattern generating or pattern synthesis process for all of your systems? So yeah, does anyone want to take this question first?
Well, I thought of my program right from the start as an artist assistant.
Mm. Maybe Deanna, you can go next because you're first up.
Yeah, I think an artist assistant is a great way to put it. I saw the tool as an opportunity to that the computer was offering me some options for what I could make, but then ultimately it was my decision. Something I didn't specify that I only realized after I got off the screen was, yeah, when we saw the flickering lines on the screen, each of those was a valid glitch weave that then could be selected and then woven with. So I really wanted to play with that tension of what is automated and what's still human choice. So the computer was giving options, but then the person who's weaving could ultimately choose what they wanted to do.
Great.
Yeah, I could. Okay.
Hi. Go, Stu, please.
I was just going to say, I didn't mention in my presentation that my app has a built-in aesthetic evaluation function. And what it does, as images are generated, it applies an algorithm, which is not my algorithm, that assigns an aesthetic score to the image. And at the beginning of a session, I set a number, which is how lousy an image am I willing to accept. And then anything worse than that is automatically tossed out, so I don't ever even see it. So, but at the end, the choice of the final image is mine. The human is always in the loop.
Yeah, my take on it is totally on the assistant side, or maybe an extension. This question of agency that's come up around regarding the AI hype, it's for me, I don't quite get it. I get it in a sense, but on the other side, I don't see why this question of intelligence, of agency, I see, when I see an AI, I will think of a kind of interface towards a big collection of human creation. For me, that's it. The same when I think of my system, I just think of a way of kind of expressing what I would like to see, but it's also an expression, even if it is automated. Yeah, something like that.
Well, my relation with the matching is to get beautiful music. For me, the matching the language we can get with pure data, with Occidental music, maybe can dodecaphonic music or music we can difficult to understand. But Indian music is very universal music, and the matching is an interface to get to the music. And I like very much to programming, and I work with another programmer. He is a very very cool programmer to make specific algorithms to make this language we have to get with numbers to get motif of Indian music.
Great, thank you. Someone in the comments, so Phil in the comments has said, I wonder why we talk about dividing the labor between human and computer as tension. I was wondering if anyone had any thoughts on that.
Well, if you weren't, go ahead, Javier.
Okay, I will take it this time. But you can maybe continue. I feel it's probably there is no such tension, but there is discourse pushing us to perceive it as such. I don't know exactly what the agenda is, but yeah, I don't feel there's tension at all. I mean, it's sometimes it is even used, or relationships to tools, as a way of expressing what we are. Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts, Steve?
I would like to say something. I was thinking I usually quote our Chilean pioneer on computer music, which is Jose Vicente Suar. He worked mainly in the 70s and 80s, developing synthesizers and bespoke computer for music and software, bespoke software. And he used to say that technology is a ladder for human imagination. So I love that approach that I would call more ecological. So I think is the question in the comments is, for me, makes a lot of sense. It's not a matter of divide things. It's like, how can we work with these two in a more ecological way, like a system that can be, feedback for our imagination and development. So for me, all these tools are a ladder for my imagination, but at the same time, it's like a good way to be trained. So it's this thing of white and black. I don't think is a good way to put it. That's it. The main idea.
Great. We have some kind of more questions from the chat that have come through. Maybe starting off with Deanna. Alex asks, there's a lot of love for your idea of fixing error with errors. Could you explain this approach a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, so that was in relation to using the weaving samples I had as patches on clothing. I saw it as a way to to celebrate and call out the mending process, which is something that is done already through visible mending and using different embroidery and textile techniques to almost to highlight and showcase opportunities where a human came in and reinforced an elbow or mended a hole in a wool sweater. And so I really like that approach. It's something that I try to do when it comes up for me in my clothes, like how do I extend the wear of something that I have? And so when I started seeing these samples as patches, I was excited to try it out in a way, and also just give a little bit more importance to these relatively small squares that ultimately would just stack up and I probably store away or put aside, and that they just became artwork that I got to wear on my body.
Yeah, great. I have another question for you as well, if that's okay. I was just curious about this idea of aesthetics of error that people were talking about in the chat as well. What do you think about why are people drawn to this practice? I guess, does it feel like it's humanizing kind of very rigid and formalized systems? Do you think there's something there?
I do. I think that's why I relate to it. I think as somebody who sometimes with computers and computing, things can feel to me rigid at times. I think that incorporating error is a way that offers serendipitous moments where we can embrace something that was a bit more unexpected. But one thing that I would want to call out too, that was just something that was an interesting exploration for me in this project, was I was intentionally not choosing to make my error random. I was sampling from a noise field to make my selections for which shafts to glitch in different ways. So everything was ultimately repeatable. So I also thought there was some interesting tension around something that looks very chaotic and random, but is actually just by putting in the same seed value, and you could recreate the exact same glitchy weave. And so, and I think it's a conversation of control too. I think I like exerting control over certain things. I also like leaving some things up to chance. So this deterministic way of adding error to cloth was something that felt like a really interesting balance to me.
Yeah, I see Jenny has just put in the chat, kind of summarizing what you're just saying a little bit as well. Do you still think of glitches as errors, or do they feel like something else, like alternate paths when framed in this way?
Yeah, no, Jenny, I think that's a really lovely way to put it. I think alternate paths is just, it feels like prompts or different openings of possibilities. Something that was coming out when working on this project was, would glitchy woven drafts actually have some interesting value or use? Maybe they exert a new property in the cloth that wasn't expected before. And so, yeah, I think error is often noted as more of a negative term. I think also for me, as somebody who likes to believe that I can embrace failure, I think there's also just a beauty in embodying or building in this robustness into a practice around being okay with the unexpected in what you're working on.
Amazing, thank you. I'll move on to a question for RagaLab. So they said Vidya Giri said, very interesting work. Would love to know if you have thought about implementing a way to describe and simulate Gamaka's ornamentation in Melakata and Janya ragas.
Yes, let me check the concept. Están preguntando si hay una manera de implementar
Gamakas.
Gamakas.
Okay. Of course, this is the objective to
the final goal.
In this moment, I developed the only the system of the reglas, the rules of Indian music, and in the next step, I said we must introduce in the synthesizer the glissandi, the means. This is one of the ornaments, and then adolan, this is vibrato, and gamakas is a rhythmic problem, and this is the last part of the development, the most difficult. But one of the objectives is to get some playback of Indian music for play over this with my bansuri, and this is a very funciona muy bien this.
Yes, but I will correct you a little bit, because Tomas said a playback, but basically it's a generative system. It will be running through these algorithms. So the idea is he already made some tests running the system and played with the system his bansuri player. So the possibilities are wide open.
But gamakas is very difficult to program in gamakas, but adolan and means is I hope this is more easy to get there. But gamakas is a very expressive music from the musician, no?
The performer.
The performer, yeah. This is
probably machine learning or deep learning system.
This is
an answer.
This is a very high development.
Great. I think we have time for maybe one more question. This comes from Phil Jones, and I think this is to Stuart. Are there some kinds of symmetries that are harder to generate than others?
The answer to that is yes. Computers are basically square inside, if you think of address space, and the way graphics programs present the screen to you, it's in terms of Cartesian XY coordinates. So anything that can be represented as a square, a rectangle, or even a rhombus is I would say, easier to program rather than to generate. And that's why I offer the lame excuse here. Well, I have to use Artlandia symmetry to get the other 5 symmetry groups. Eventually I'll do it. Although what that program does, Artlandia, among other things, is that it softens the boundaries between the different cells of the image, so that you get this automatically get this beautiful slick image without lifting a finger on your own. So again, it's harder to program rather than harder to generate. I mean, once you got the code, you can generate anything.
Great. Thanks.
By the way, I'm not being paid by Artlandia.
Javier, I can't see any questions for you, but I can see that lots of people were responding very positively to your presentation as well, saying, really interesting to see visuals describing pattern structures, and how fascinating it is to, when rotating rhythms, that you can change the patterns as well. So thanks again for your contribution. I think we are now at 12:30, so we will leave it there for today. thanks to everyone for joining, and it's been a great session again. I could listen to talks like this all day. So thanks everyone for your contributions, and we will be back on the stream again tomorrow. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.